Bitcoin holding key technical support between 42 and 43,000 on the back of last week's ETF approval. What we have here, there's some positives and negatives. Number one, a positive is we're only back to levels that we basically saw about 10 to 15 trading days ago. So as of now, this is just a run-of-your-mill retrace, and it's holding this support line. That's important. As long as it holds that support line, okay, it's fine.
Gareth Soloway of VerifiedInvesting.com conducted a thorough chart analysis, revealing potential bullish and bearish scenarios for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is down almost 7% in the last week as the market impact of the recently approved BTC ETF works its way through the system. While many contrarian bets about the price of Bitcoin after the ETF approval have been proven right, Fidelity's Jurrian Timmer doesn't expect the sell-off to continue much longer. In a thread on X, Timer, Fidelity's director of global macro, said current trends in Bitcoin's price are suggestive of a short-term positioning adjustment rather than a long-term trend reversal. Understanding that everything in the market involves probabilities, Soloway explores the positives and negatives. On the positive side, Bitcoin's retracement to levels observed 10 to 15 days ago implies a routine adjustment. However, on the negative side, Soloway notes a conspicuous topping tail and the potential development of a bearish pattern. Despite the Bitcoin spot ETF approval, the market's perception swiftly took an unpleasant shift. Reportedly, Bitcoin saw a whopping $1.18 billion inflow in digital assets funds worldwide following ETF approval. Despite the significant inflow of capital, the anticipated impact of boosting the price of Bitcoin has yet to be realized. Market watchers are looking for the following potentially bullish event to drive cryptocurrency gains. When reviewing Bitcoin's weekly and monthly charts, Soloway highlights concerns. A topping tail on the weekly chart suggests possible bearish developments in the coming 10 to 12 weeks. Let's now delve into the video to explore more. But before we begin, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon to stay updated with the latest content.
Bitcoin surging last week, up initially on the back of that spot ETF approval and then dumping out. Look at where we went to here. Classic little level, a retrace to support. So there's a lot of support here, and here we are. We find ourselves hanging on to support. The first thing that catches my eye, number one, okay, now listen, there's bull and bear cases here. My job is to look at all sides of it. And this is the big difference between a lot of the kind of the uber bulls, right? They only want to hear the positives. They only want to hear the positives. It's why a lot of them were buying at 65,000 or 69,000 and then got wrecked down to 20 when I had called that move. Ultimately, what you have to recognize is that you have to look at both sides and then you look at probabilities. Like I said, everything's probabilities. Okay, so what we have here, there's some positives and negatives. Number one, a positive is we're only back to levels that we basically saw about 10 to 15 trading days ago. So as of now, this is just a run-of-your-mill retrace, and it's holding this support line. That's important. As long as it holds that support line, okay, it's fine. Then the negative, though, is, number one, this was a topping tail. All right, number two, you have to start watching as a technician what type of pattern could this be, right? Could this be a bearish pattern? Now, it's still an immature bearish pattern, all right? And there's a difference. So when you have a drop and you have one candle sideways, immature, 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 slightly more mature, very mature, very mature, okay? The idea is the more days that go and continue to create that pattern, the more mature the pattern gets. Just like a human being, the more mature, the more it has power to it. And the idea is that probabilities are very low in the early stages of it playing out, but as it matures, the probabilities increase. So right now, this is still an immature bear flag, but if we get a couple more sideways days here, it becomes more of a mature pattern and probabilities begin to shift towards the downside, okay? So those are just, that's something that we have to watch. The only other thing that I would just point out that has me concerned that we could have not just a multi-week top here, but a multi-month top is that if you go to your daily chart, and your weekly chart, and I flip this up here. So this is your weekly chart on Bitcoin, right? So if we look at this, what type of candle is this? So we know we had a topping tail on the daily chart, which is bearish. But again, daily chart tells you what's going to likely happen over the next 10, 15 days. A weekly chart topping tail, though, that's telling you now over the next, let's say, 10 to 12 weeks maybe what could be ensuing. And that's a bearish indicator, right, when you get that reversal. Lastly, okay, if we go to the monthly chart, now the month's not over, so this is the key, and this is going to be the big one. But as of now, this is a topping tail on the monthly as well. Now, if the monthly puts in a topping tail, you could literally be looking at a many-month high on Bitcoin. And again, we know that going into the halving, sometimes we see a dump, but that's not that far away now. But it does kind of speak to whether or not we see a risk-off movement here. And a lot of people won't want to hear that. I'm just telling you, this is the candles are the candles. You go in textbooks on technical analysis, or as some people like to call it, astrology for men. You basically have this candle formation, this candle of a topping tail is in there for decades, if not 50 years, as a signal because it's been back tested for that long. Now, it doesn't mean it's not failable, right? It can still fail, but again, you just have to be aware of what it tells you. Okay.
Soloway observes on the daily chart that the S&P shows signs of exhaustion, indicating a requirement for consolidation before a possible breakthrough. Stock prices slightly extended their uptrend on Friday, but the S&P 500 index closed just 0.08% higher, despite recent inflation data that indicated a likelihood of easing monetary policy in the coming months. Finally, bringing the focus back to Bitcoin, Soloway emphasizes the significance of the 618 retrace when analyzing its all-time high. The retracement from the peak of 69 down to the cycle's low precisely aligns with the 618 level. In its attempt to mitigate the losses, Bitcoin did recover marginally, climbing past the $42,000 mark. Notably, it touched upon the 23.6% Fibonacci retracement level of the recent pronounced decline from the high of $49,000 to the low of $41,476. Now, let's redirect our attention to a video.
Basically, what we're looking at here is the S&P 500, or the spiders. You can see pre-market. This is pre-market. This was Friday after the close, right? Friday after the close. Today's Tuesday. Markets are open. We had the futures opening sharply lower, kind of grinding lower, and then rallying almost back to just slightly negative. Then we are seeing a little bit of weakness come in here. All right, so again, we are looking at a lower open on Wall Street. Now, if we look at the charts on the daily chart, what we do know is that we continue to be up against resistance, right? So again, very clear. I've talked about these levels here, this level here, and then this is your all-time high double top right up here. So we know that the S&P is into resistance. It's running out of steam. It needs to consolidate if it's going to break through. I do think there's always a chance it could break through, but we have to watch this level. We get above 480 on the spiders, I think you're heading to 500 on the SPY, right? And that would equate to about 5,000 on the S&P 500. Before I go, I just want to show you this. It's pretty darn cool. Taking your highest point on nat gas over the basically in 2023 to your lowest. Do you guys remember what your retrace was? It was a perfect 618 retrace before the high and the pullback. And look at that pullback. That's a huge pullback from 315 all the way back to 264. By the way, I'm a buyer at 250 to 255 right down here. But 618 retrace. Watch that. Now, let's flip over to Bitcoin again one last time. And if we go to the all-time, let me go back to the daily chart here. If we go to that all-time high on Bitcoin and we do a retrace from the all-time high of 69 down to the lows of this cycle, where did Bitcoin top out? Exactly at the 618 right there. That's cool, guys. So again, my point is that that's actually my favorite retrace. So there's lots of Fibonacci numbers. There's the 0.5, there's the 382. The 382 is not bad too, but it's more of a shorter term move. But let's bring it back to center screen. But really, again, the 618 is my favorite. When I see a 618 retrace, obviously you need multiple factors. You just can't go off the retrace, the Fibonacci, but that one's a pretty darn cool one. All right.
Bitcoin's rally has already stalled, with the cryptocurrency trading 10% lower from highs near $49,000 registered after 11 spot exchange-traded funds began trading in the U.S. last Thursday. Per observers, the bullish momentum has waned due to early ETF flows failing to match the sky-high market expectations. What is your stance? Your input is valuable. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this content helpful, Give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to stay updated. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us.